The alien city of Tarnek 7 was always cold. Its sky was dark and the buildings looked like metal bones sticking out of the ground. Between the buildings, narrow streets twisted like mazes. One such street led to the edge of the market zone, where the lights didn't reach and the people didn't care. There, sitting against a dirty wall, was a widow named Kirala. Her skin was soft blue with gentle violet patterns on her cheeks, but it was pale now from hunger. Her long silver hair was tied in a knot behind her head. Her clothes were torn and thin. She held a small girl close to her chest, trying to keep her warm. The girl, Sally, didn't cry anymore. She was too tired for that. Kirala whispered softly, "Just sleep, my star, Mama's here." They had been sitting in that corner for days. Aliens passed by, tall ones with glowing eyes, short ones with extra arms, and others with wings or horns. All of them saw Kirala. All of them looked away. Some even crossed the street to avoid her. "She's cursed," they whispered. "Don't look into her eyes." "She killed her mate," someone said. No, he died after she gave birth. It's a sign of the void's anger." None of it was true. Her mate, Jorkan, had died in a factory explosion 2 years ago. The owners blamed him to save themselves. The people blamed Kirala because it was easier than helping her. Since then, no one gave her food, shelter, or even work. She begged for jobs, but every door closed in her face. "She brings misfortune," they always said. Now Kirala's bones hurt. Her eyes were dry. She hadn't eaten in 3 days, and Seely had only one small piece of old bread yesterday. Still, she didn't leave the city. There was nowhere else to go. Just then, she heard footsteps. Heavy ones. Different from the usual alien steps. They were slow, steady, human. She didn't look up at first. She thought, just another person who will pass. But the footsteps stopped, right in front of her. "Are you okay?" a deep voice asked. She blinked and slowly raised her head. He was tall, wearing dark armor with scratches and burns, clearly a man who had seen battles. His skin was tanned, his hair short, and he had a light beard. His eyes were calm but sharp. A human male. A stranger. We don't need trouble," Kirala said weakly. He crouched down. "You look like you need food more than anything." She looked away. "You shouldn't be near me, I'm cursed." He didn't move. Instead, he reached into his bag and pulled out a wrapped bar, protein-packed human ration. Then another, and another. He held one out to her. "Here, for the little one." Kirala hesitated. Sally opened her eyes and looked at the bar. Her small hands reached out. Kirala couldn't say no. She took the bar and gently unwrapped it. Sally started eating slowly at first, then faster. The human smiled. "Name's Drake." Kirala looked at him. "Why are you helping us? Don't you hear them? They say I bring bad luck." Drake shrugged. "Yeah, I heard them. And I don't care." She stared at him, unsure if he was joking or mad. "You're not afraid?" she asked. "I fought on 5 planets, faced beasts with 10 heads. A hungry mother and child don't scare me," he said calmly. "But the curse, there's no such thing as a curse. Thing is, just cowards looking for someone to blame." Kirala couldn't believe it. Was he really human? Was he real? She felt tears rise, but she pushed them back. "Thank you," she whispered. Drake stood up and offered his hand. "Come on. You can't sleep in the dirt. You and the kid can stay at my place for the night." She looked at his hand, then at Sally, who was licking the last crumbs from the wrapper. Kirala took a breath and held out her shaking hand. His grip was warm, strong. As they stood up, the nearby aliens froze. Their mouths hung open in shock. Some hissed, others looked away, disgusted or afraid. Drake didn't care. He walked through them, leading the widow and her child away from the filth. And for the first time in many years, Kirala felt like someone saw her as a person again. The sky above Tarnek 7 always looked the same, gray and empty. But that night, something had changed. Kirala sat quietly inside a small metal room. It was warm, clean, and silent. Nothing like the cold alleys she and Saley had known for years. The soft hum of a heater buzzed gently in the corner. A folded blanket lay on the bed. A small bowl of warm broth sat on the table beside her. She didn't touch it. Across the room, the human, Drake, was taking off his boots. He moved with calm control, like a soldier used to long, dangerous walks. "You and the kid can use the bed," he said without turning. "I'll take the chair." Kerala blinked. "Why? Are you being kind to us?" Drake looked at her, then walked to the table. He sat down, leaned forward, and rested his elbows on his knees. "Because it's the right thing to do." "No one else thinks so," she said, her voice hollow. "Everyone sees me and runs away. Even machines stop working near me. My people believe I bring misfortune." Drake raised an eyebrow. "Machines stop working because they're made by idiots who blame others when they break, not because of you." That made her pause. Was this man really human? Or just fearless? "Don't you believe in curses?" she asked, testing him. "I believe in choices," he said simply. "And I choose not to let a child freeze to death just because some fools are scared of old stories." Kerala looked down at Seely, who had curled up in the blanket and fallen asleep. Her daughter's breathing was soft, like it had been waiting for this moment of peace. "My husband believed in choices too," she said. "He chose to speak up when his factory had unsafe parts. The explosion killed him. They blamed him, then they blamed me." Drake listened, eyes steady. "I gave birth alone," she continued. "Outside the city walls. No one helped. And when they saw my child's birth date match the accident, they said she was marked." "Marked for what?" "Misery." Drake shook his head. "That's not how humans see things. Back on Earth, we help people who fall down. We don't kick them. Lower." Kerala stared at him. "Then why are you here? Tarnak 7 is no place for kindness." Drake's expression shifted. Something darker flickered in his eyes. "I've been drifting since the war ended," he said. "This planet was supposed to be my quiet place, but today I saw a starving mother and her daughter sitting in trash, and something in me said, 'Not today.'" She didn't reply. The silence grew heavy. He stood, grabbed a clean pillow from the shelf and handed it to her. "Sleep. Tomorrow we talk about something better than curses." She hesitated, then took the pillow slowly. Before he turned away, she asked, "What's it like on Earth?" Drake gave a small smile. "Loud, messy, but home." And then, without another word, he sat in the chair, leaned back, and closed his eyes. Kerala watched him for a long time. This man, this human, had no reason to help her, no profit, no gain. Yet here he was, guarding them like a silent soldier. She finally laid her head beside Saley and closed her eyes. For the first time in years, sleep came without fear. The next morning, Drake woke up early, checked his gear, and brewed something that smelled strong, human coffee. Kerala sat up, rubbing her eyes. "We should leave before someone sees us here." "You're not going anywhere," Drake said. "Unless it's to get breakfast." He pulled out a folded piece of paper and handed it to her. "What's this?" she asked. "An offer." She opened it, her hands trembled. It was a simple contract. Drake had set up a food booth license and he'd put it in her name. I don't understand." "You said you could cook. You said no one would hire you. So I did something better. I gave you a place to build your own." Kerala was speechless. "But the city—" "I already filed the forms," Drake said. "They can't stop it. Not without making trouble. With Earth Consulate." Kerala stared at him, shocked. "You would fight for me? For us?" Drake shrugged. "Why not?" Tears filled her eyes, but she quickly wiped them. "I don't know how to thank you." Drake gave a half smile. "Just prove them wrong." The lights in Drake's shelter were dim and warm. They didn't flicker like the broken street lamps outside. For Kerala, the silence in the small room felt strange. Too peaceful, too safe. She sat on the edge of the bed, still holding the food license in her hands. She had read it 3 times already. Each time, her fingers trembled. Her name was printed, clearly at the top, Kirala Velen, licensed food vendor, Tarnex 7 Sector 14. For years, she was nothing more than a shadow, a curse, a burden. And now, this strange human had given her an identity again. She looked over at Drake, who was sitting by the heater with his sleeves rolled up. His arm had old scars, some from weapons, others from burns. He was busy repairing a small metal cooking stove. She cleared her throat softly. "You didn't have to do this." Drake didn't look up. "I know." "Then, why?" He stopped working and glanced at her. His gaze wasn't soft. It was serious, focused. "Back when I was in the military, there was a planet called Cornex. Delta," he said. "We found a village wiped out by pirates. Only one survivor, a boy hiding under the floorboards, starving. No one wanted to bring him back. Too risky." Kirala listened quietly. "I carried him out on my back, fed him, trained him. Years later, he saved 20 lives in a rescue mission." Drake stood and tightened the last screw on the stove. "Kindness isn't charity," he added. "It's a spark. If you protect it, it spreads." Kirala looked down at her daughter, Celie, who was sleeping peacefully with a tiny smile on her lips. She had never smiled like that in the alleys. "You think I can really run a booth?" she asked. Drake nodded. "You survived all this. I think you can survive anything." She almost smiled, almost. But then, her voice turned quiet. "There's something I haven't told you." Drake sat back down. "Go ahead." She took a deep breath, her voice shaking. "After my husband died, I tried to end my life." Drake didn't flinch. "I was in a tunnel outside the city. Celie had just been born. I was weak, lost. I thought I had nothing left. But as I held her, she opened her eyes and smiled at me. A real smile." Kirala's voice cracked. "I don't know if it was a hallucination, but in that moment I felt seen, like she was saying, 'Don't give up, Mama.'" Drake was silent for a moment, then said, "That's not a hallucination. That's what hope looks like." Kirala wiped her eyes. "People say she's marked," she said softly. "But I believe she saved me. Every day she kept me going, even if it meant sleeping in dirt, even if I was starving." Drake leaned forward. "Let me tell you something, Kirala. On Earth we have this saying, a curse only works if you believe in it, but hope works even when you don't." She blinked. "You humans really think like that?" "Most of us," he said with a smirk. "The rest are idiots." She chuckled. It was small but real. Drake stood up and opened a metal box. Inside were a few old coins, spice packets, and a folded cloth. He took out the cloth and handed it to her. "What is this?" she asked. "A vendor's apron," he said. "It's yours now." She unfolded it slowly. It had human letters stitched on the front. "Feed with fire. Serve with heart." She held it close. For a second, she couldn't speak. "You're giving me everything, but what if I fail?" she whispered. Drake shrugged. "Then fail forward, try again." She stared at him. No one had ever believed in her this way. Not even her own people. Outside, the city still buzzed with life. Cold, harsh, unforgiving. But inside that small shelter, something had changed. The cursed widow was beginning to believe she might not be cursed at all. She looked up at Drake. "Tomorrow I'll cook," she said with strength in her voice. "I'll make the kind of food that makes people forget old stories." He nodded. "Good. Make it so good they regret ever doubting you." And as the heater hummed and the stars blinked far above the clouds, Kirala made a silent promise. "This time, I will not run." The next morning, the sky above Tarnex 7 was tinted green from the nearby gas clouds, but the streets below were the same. Cold metal and colder hearts. Kirala stood in front of an empty stall space in the outer food market. Her hands clutched the folded vendor license, and her eyes scanned the cracked countertop, the rusted cooking vent, the broken sign above that still read in faded letters, Grashna's Grub, closed due to contamination. Drake was beside her holding a small repair kit and a folded tablecloth. "This was your idea?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "It's not pretty," he said. "But it's yours." Kerala looked around. Alien vendors on either side were already setting up. The moment they saw her, they froze. One whispered, "Isn't that the cursed widow?" Another one with 4 tentacle arms hissed, "She'll poison the whole district. She'll bring rot to the food." Some stepped back. Others moved their stalls farther away. Drake noticed. He turned toward them and raised his voice, calm but firm. "If anyone has a problem with her, they can take it up with me. I'm her sponsor." Silence. Eyes widened. A human standing beside a cursed alien? Some vendors immediately shut their mouths and went back to work. A few stared, whispering curses. One just spat on the ground and walked away. Kerala felt the heat rising in her cheeks, not from anger but shame. She looked down, but Drake leaned toward her and said, "Let them stare. You're not here for them. You're here for your daughter. And for you." She nodded slowly. "Let's clean it," she said, her voice gaining strength. For the next 2 hours, they worked together. Kerala scrubbed the counters, scraped off the grease, and wiped every surface with herbs she had learned about from her mother, herbs that smelled of home. Drake repaired the stove vent, connected the power rods, and hammered the wobbly leg of the table until it stood solid. By midday, the place didn't look new, but it looked ready. Kerala opened a small bag of ingredients, simple things Drake had bought for her that morning. Flour blocks, red root spices, dried soil fish, heat, oil, and even a packet of human chili flakes. "I'm going to make something they've never tasted before," she whispered to herself. Sally sat nearby on a crate, watching with wide eyes as her mother moved with confidence for the first time. Kerala kneaded the dough, mixed the oil and spice, chopped dried fish with expert fingers, and poured it all onto a hot plate. Sweet, spicy smell began to float through the air. Vendors nearby sniffed. Customers passing by slowed down. One alien, a curious young merchant from the Talari species, paused and asked, What is that smell?" Drake smiled. "Food." The alien hesitated, then stepped forward. "How much?" Kerala blinked. "Oh, Drake handed her a small coin pad. "Set the price." She looked at the dish, then looked at the customer. 2 credits, she said nervously. The Talari nodded and paid. Kerala handed over a warm paper wrap filled with crispy spiced fish and soft bread. The Talari bit in. His 4 eyes widened. "By the moons, this is amazing." He waved to a friend. "Come try this. It's like fire and clouds." More aliens stopped. 2, 5, then 10. Despite the rumors, the smell had broken through the walls of fear. Kerala worked fast, cooking, wrapping, and serving. Sally giggled, clapping her hands from the side. But then, a tall, wealthy-looking alien in golden robes approached the stall, his face curled in disgust. "You're allowing her to sell food here?" he asked Drake loudly. "She's a licensed vendor," Drake said, arms crossed. "She's cursed. If she stays, I'll shut my stall down. She will destroy this entire market." Some nearby vendors nodded. Others looked unsure. Drake stepped forward. "If feeding her child is a crime, then charge me. But if you're just angry she's doing better than you, then leave." The golden-robed alien looked stunned. Kerala stood up straighter. "I've lived in silence while my child starved. I begged while you laughed. But I'm done being your shadow," she said, voice strong. The crowd froze. Then, an old alien woman walked up, placed 5 credits on the counter and said, "You remind me of my daughter, make me 2. Someone clapped. Another ordered 3. The golden-robed alien turned and walked away. By evening, Kirala's hands were sore, but her heart was full. She had made more credits in one day than she had seen in months. More than the money, she had seen respect in people's eyes, even if it was just a little. As she packed up, Drake walked over and handed her a bottle of water. "You did good," he said. She looked at him, smiling for real now. "We did good." Celie ran to her and hugged her leg. "Mama, we're not invisible anymore." Kirala looked at the dark sky, stars twinkling above the clouds. "No," she whispered. "We're finally seen." The second day at the market was even busier than the first. Kirala arrived early, long before the other vendors. She had a new cloth wrapped around her head, her daughter Celie bundled warmly on a nearby stool with a small chalkboard to draw on. The food stall now had a name, hand-painted in both alien script and English: Celie's Hearth. The name alone made passers-by pause. She named it after her daughter? One alien whispered. "Strange, but sweet," another murmured. By mid-morning, the smell of roasted spices and her now famous storm-bred wraps filled the alley. A line began to form, and this time, no one hesitated. Some aliens brought reusable food trays, while others came in groups. Her hands worked with confidence. She moved like she belonged there. But she still noticed the stares. The whispers hadn't fully stopped. Isn't she the one they called cursed? She's feeding dozens now. Doesn't look cursed, to me. Even the neighboring vendor, an old clawed reptilian alien named Hrask, peeked over with a slow nod. Yesterday, he refused to speak to her. Today, he offered, "If you ever need extra salt roots, I've got a bundle." Kirala blinked. "Thank you. I may take you up on that." Just as she returned to wrapping food, a sudden scream rang, out nearby. Everyone turned. A young alien boy had collapsed at another vendor's stall. His mother cried for help. "He has void fever. He needs salt and protein. Now." The market froze. No one moved. No one wanted to touch a child with a contagious fever. No one. Except Kirala. She pushed her way through the frozen crowd, carrying a bowl of thick bone stew she had simmered that morning. She knelt beside the boy and held his head up. "Open your mouth, little one. It's warm. It will help." The mother looked at her with tears. You're helping us?" Kirala smiled gently. "Mothers help mothers." The boy drank slowly. His breathing calmed. Within minutes, he stopped shaking. A few in the crowd gasped. Some stepped forward to help. A cloth was offered. Another vendor brought water. The fear broke. And just like that, the curse around Kirala shattered like old glass. Later that day, Drake arrived, walking through the market with a small crate of supplies. He froze when he saw the size of the crowd near her booth. "You open a starport and forget to tell me?" he teased. Kirala looked up and grinned. "I may need a second pair of hands." Drake chuckled and handed her the crate. "I brought more red root, as promised." She looked around and whispered, "They don't stare the same anymore." "No," he agreed. "They look at you with respect now." "But it's not just me," she said softly. "It's because you stood beside me." Drake shook his head. "I lit the torch. You carried it through the dark." Then, as if on cue, a small group of other alien women approached her stand, timid, nervous. One of them spoke up, voice shaking. We lost our mates too. No one gives us jobs. Can we learn from you?" Kirala blinked. "You want to learn to cook?" Another nodded. "Or clean, or just help. Anything." She looked at them. She saw herself, lost, alone, desperate, but with fire still flickering behind tired eyes. "Yes," she said firmly. "All of you are welcome. This stall won't just feed people, it will lift them." Over the next week, Celie's Hearth became more than a food stand. It became a place of healing. The line grew longer every day. Kirala trained 3 widows how to cook the bread and fry the fish. Celie drew pictures and gave them to customers. Drake helped set up extra crates and benches for people to sit. Alien children came to eat and stayed to laugh. Some vendors who once mocked her now asked if she could sell spice mixes. A local news drone even hovered nearby, capturing footage and tagging it with a title, "From Cursed to Cook, One Widow's Stand Changes a Market." That night, Kerala sat on the roof of her shelter, looking up at the stars. Celie was asleep, curled up in her lap. Drake sat beside her, sipping from a warm drink. "You did it," he said. "I'm not cursed anymore," she whispered. "No," he agreed. "You never were." She looked at him. "Why do humans help so much?" Drake smiled. "Because we know what it's like to be broken, and we believe no one should stay broken forever." Kerala rested her head back. The wind was cool, the stars were endless, and for the first time since her husband died, she felt free. By the third week, Celie's hearth was no longer just a stall. It was a symbol. Aliens from far sectors of Tarnex 7 came to eat, not just for the food, but for what it stood for. A second chance, a place where the forgotten were remembered. Even city officers who once ignored the slums now smiled and waved as they passed. But the biggest change wasn't in the food or the crowd. It was in Celie. The little girl who once sat silent in her mother's lap now greeted every visitor with joy. She had a small chalkboard hanging around her neck with a drawing of the food stand, and underneath it in messy letters she had written, "Mama's place for everyone." One morning she climbed up on a crate beside the counter and looked at her mother seriously. "Mama," she said, "I want to go to school." Kerala paused mid-cut of a spice fruit. "School?" "Yes," Celie said with wide, determined eyes. "I want to learn. I want to make this place bigger. I want to help more people." Kerala's hands froze. She stared at her daughter. In her mind, she still saw the alleyways, the hunger, the shame. But this was hope. "You want to study?" she asked gently. "Yes. I want to be smart." Like the human, Celie grinned, pointing at Drake, who was busy fixing a broken chair leg nearby. Drake looked up and raised an eyebrow. "Smart like me? That's dangerous." Celie giggled. Kerala's heart swelled with pride and fear. "I'll think about it," she said softly, ruffling her daughter's hair. That night, as the fire dimmed and the last customers left, Kerala sat with Drake beside the booth. "She wants to study," she said. Drake nodded. "She should. But how? We barely make enough to survive. Even with the stall doing well, education fees in Tarnex 7 are high, especially for a non-citizen child." Drake leaned back and folded his arms. "There are human programs, outreach, missions. If I put in a request through the Earth Embassy, they might sponsor her." Kerala turned to him. "You would do that?" He shrugged. "You gave her a future. I'm just sending the message." She bit her lip. "And if they say, no, then we find another way." Kerala stared at the stars above. "Celie dreams big," she whispered. "Bigger than I ever did." Drake smiled. "Then it's our job to make sure her dreams don't stay dreams." The next day, Drake took a trip across the city to the human consulate hub. It was a long walk, through guarded walls, past trade zones, and into the heart of the political center. He stood in front of a bored-looking Earth officer and said, "I'm here to file a sponsorship request. For a child." The officer blinked. "Species?" "Half-Krolin. Female, 6 years old." "Relation?" Drake paused. "No blood, but she's family." Meanwhile, back at the stall, Kerala received a surprise visit. A short, round alien in a suit arrived with 2 bodyguards. His skin was pale green and his eyes blinked in rows. He smiled politely. "I am Counselor Vesh, part of the Tarnex Trade Committee." Kerala wiped her hands quickly. "Counselor, I didn't expect visitors." He walked around the booth, eyeing the neat shelves, the organized prep area, the laughter of the helping widows behind her. "You've built something powerful here. he said. Very powerful. I just wanted to feed people. Yes, but now they talk about you in the upper halls. Some say you're dangerous. Kerala tensed. Why? Because a cursed widow was supposed to disappear. Not build a business. Not gain respect. Not inspire others. She felt her throat tighten. I don't want trouble, she whispered. Vesh leaned closer. But trouble may find you. Powerful people dislike stories that challenge the old ways. Then, without warning, he handed her a small card. Apply for citizenship, he said. If you become legal, they cannot touch you. You'll have protections and your daughter can go to school. She stared at him. Why are you helping me? Vesh smiled. Because my wife was once where you are, and someone helped her. With that he left. That night, Kerala sat in the shelter, holding both the card from Vesh and the embassy receipt from Drake. Two different paths. One common goal. Celie was asleep nearby, holding her chalkboard tightly in her arms. On the board she had drawn a picture of her booth, with 5 hearts floating above it. Kerala whispered, She dreams of helping others, and the galaxy is beginning to listen. Drake sat beside her. The real curse was the silence forced on you. Now, you're the loudest hope in this city. Kerala nodded. The cursed widow was no longer cursed. She was rising, and bringing others with her. The streets of Tarnex 7 had changed. Once dark, cruel, and silent, they now buzzed with life near Celie's hearth, the little food stall that had become a movement. It wasn't just about warm bread or hot stew anymore. It was about voices that had once been quiet finally being heard. And at the center of it all stood Kerala, the alien widow once labeled a walking curse. Now, she was known by a different name across the district, the Flame of the Market. The gathering storm, the day started like any other. Kerala woke early, stirring spice oil over heat stones while Celie tied her apron with practiced hands. The helpers, other alien widows and abandoned women, had arrived before dawn. Some were cooking, others prepared packages for children in need. But the market felt tense. Whispers floated in from all directions. They're sending the enforcement council today. High Counselor Iraq is furious. He says the human broke trade law. They might shut the place down. Kerala didn't panic. She stood firm behind her counter and kept serving. Drake arrived not long after, his eyes scanning the crowd. He was wearing his ex-military coat again, the one with worn-out medals stitched into the collar. It meant he was expecting trouble. They're really doing it, he said quietly. She nodded. Let them come. Drake looked at her and saw no fear, just calm, steady resolve, the kind of strength that came not from fighting, but from surviving. The court and the street by midday, armored transports lined the outer district. The enforcement council had arrived, 4 tall aliens in shining blue armor, faces hidden behind glass masks. Behind them stood High Counselor Iraq, a towering creature with silver skin and a forked tongue. His robe dragged like a storm cloud across the ground. A crowd gathered. Some vendors shut down, others stayed, whispering and watching. Iraq raised his voice. This stall, known as Celie's Hearth, stands in violation of Council Order 19Z, unlicensed civic influence, unregistered aid programs, and distribution of illegal earth materials. Gasps echoed. Drake's jaw tightened. Kerala stepped forward. We are fully licensed. Your license is invalid, Iraq snapped. It was processed through a human loophole, not approved by the Tarnex Council. Drake stepped in. Under Interplanetary Agreement 88A, humans can sponsor alien aid efforts. You approved it yourself 3 years ago. Iraq sneered. This is no aid mission. This is rebellion disguised as bread. The crowd murmured louder. Kerala raised her hand. You speak of law. But what law protects the hungry child? What law saved my daughter from dying in the cold? Iraq pointed a long claw at her. You are cursed. You twist sympathy into power. A voice rang out from the crowd, clear and young. She's not cursed. Everyone turned. It was Sci. She stood on a crate holding up her chalkboard. In large letters she had written, "Mama feeds hearts, not just stomachs." Iraq laughed bitterly. This is your witness?" Then something unexpected happened. Another voice rang out. "She fed my son when he collapsed. No one else moved. I was alone before she hired me," cried another widow. "She taught us we matter," shouted someone else. Within moments, dozens stepped forward. Customers, vendors, elders, and children. I was hungry. I was invisible. She saw me. She helped me. Drake leaned close to Iraq and whispered, "You came for a shutdown. What you found was a revolution." 3. The verdict of the people. Iraq raised his hand to silence the crowd. "Enough. You speak from emotion, not order. This stand is a threat to the structure of our city." Before Kirala could respond, the unexpected happened again. A projection, device activated overhead. A hollow image flickered to life, showing the symbol of the Earth-Tarnex Alliance office. A human ambassador appeared on screen, his voice calm and clear. "This is Ambassador Harlan Gray. After review, the Earth office confirms Sealy's Hearth is a lawful humanitarian project supported by Earth's peacekeepers and protected under the Free Aid Expansion Act." The crowd gasped. Iraq's eyes twitched. You went over our heads." Drake gave him a sharp smile. "We followed the stars. Your ceiling was too low." The Enforcement Council officers looked at each other and stepped back. Kirala faced the crowd and spoke loudly. "We don't ask for permission to be kind. We don't wait for laws to tell us when to care. We are the forgotten. But we are not weak. We are not curses. We are voices rising." The market exploded into applause. Even those who had once turned away now cheered. A future forged in fire. The next day, the stall wasn't just open, it was celebrated. News networks visited. Sealy was given a scholarship by an Earth Human School outreach program. The local trade council, pressured by the public, approved full licenses to Kirala's helpers. Within 2 weeks, they had started 3 more food stations across the district. Kirala became a mentor, guiding others who had suffered loss and silence. Drake, finally at peace with his wandering past, stayed by her side, not as a hero, not as a protector, but as family. One evening, as the market wound down, Sally approached her mother with a drawing. It showed a large building with gardens, a kitchen, and many children smiling. "What's this, Star?" Kirala asked. Sally grinned. "It's what I want to build, a real school, where no child is called cursed, ever." Kirala smiled, tears stinging her eyes. "Then we'll build it." The last word. Years later, travelers from all over the galaxy came to Tarnex 7, not to trade or fight, but to learn. The Cursed District had become the Heart District, and in the center stood a school, a garden, and a kitchen. On its stone front, a plaque read, "They called us cursed, but we led, we loved, we healed." And now, the galaxy follows, and underneath, carved by a child's hand, Mama's place front for everyone.